So, just before I got on this conversation, I saw news about the African Union being attacked by cyber criminals. Well, it's funny because as I speak to you and I'm talking about this is the month dedicated to cybersecurity. And to think that, of course, you would also get to hear that some people fell victim to it just speaks to the fact that we need to keep talking about these things and we need to get everyone informed about cybersecurity and the things around it, not just the ordinary persons as they go about their daily lives, but then the persons who ordinarily run the businesses of every other person, right? So whether it's a gate man, it's a doorkeeper, whether it's the typist, the secretary, like it really doesn't matter. Anybody can be social engineered. Anybody, like it can happen to anybody. You might think that, oh, you're like sitting high and mighty and whatnot, and you've bought all the tools needed. Really, how secure are you? Now, getting into organizations, this is the second episode in the series by Ethnos on Africa Tech Radio dedicated to teaching you about cybersecurity on different levels. The first episode, we talked about the threat review of 2023 and looked at mitigation and plans for 2024. And this episode, well, governance, risk, and compliance. Yes, GRC.
At Ethnos, we are focused on solving customers' problems. Whether it is securing the applications and databases that power your business, the users and customers that access your infrastructure, API calls that go in and out of your business, securing people who are your greatest assets, but also pose your weakest link. We also look after your relevant security regulatory standards and the frameworks that you should comply with. Yes, we are Ethnos. We solve real problems.
I have today with me Eno Asa. She is a highly skilled security and risk management professional with expertise in leading management system projects. And I also have with me Mr. Sholakpe, who is an accomplished GRC. We'll be saying GRC almost all through this episode. So just know GRC, when you're GRC, governance, risk and compliance professional with a career spanning over 10 years in diverse industries across the continent. And this is, business continuity, information cybersecurity, risk management, IT governance, data protection. These are the spectrum where his expertise runs through. Hi, let's hear Eno's voice. How are you today?
I'm well, thank you. Good morning.
Yep, good morning. And Mr. Sholakwe.
Good morning, everyone. Nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Beautiful. They all lead back now until Glasgow starts flying, so it's all good. Let's start with the lady in the room. When we say GRC, right, what exactly do we mean?
Okay. So when we're talking about GRC, let's look at it as a single entity, right? We're looking at how, what's the organization's approach, okay, to aligning their operations with their business objectives, okay? They have a defined business objective. How do they align their operations to this business objective? What's their approach to managing the risk that they are prone to face, and how do they stay compliant with the laws, with the regulations, whatever it is, with the policies, internal policies, or what have you? How do they stay compliant to these framework standards and regulations? That's just in simple terms what a GRC is, when you want to just look at it from a single standpoint,
Okay, so Mr. Sholakwe, how do we split this now? Let's start with one of the terms, governance.
Yes.
When we say governance, what exactly do we mean?
Okay, thank you very much for having me once again. So governance, what is governance? Governance talks about the set of policies, procedures, plans that an organization puts in place in order to ensure that people, staff of the various organizations are sort of adhering to. You know what they say in the local parlance, in a land where there are no laws, there are no offenses, right? Mm-hmm. So it then begs the question that when we have policies in place, expecting that people follow, and looking at Africa as our case in point, you have a situation whereby there's a lot of, in quote, one-man business, big manism, in the sense that if I ask you today, how many African businesses can you say that I've lived 3 generations, 4 generations? You probably have a handful.
Yeah.
What happens is that most African businesses die with the owner. And what is the cause of that? We've seen that lack of governance, lack of proper structures being put in place. So that was how GRC was bet, to understand the fact that, yes, you've built a business, but how sustainable is the business outside of you? All right. If you are not available, can your business continue to function? That's why we have to put proper governance in place, such that if I'm no longer available, my business continues to function. So we have these plans, you have these procedures, you have these policies being put in place. That's pretty much why we need governance in place in organizations, such that you see your business outside of yourself. Okay, you are the founder, you have the vision, but when you are not there, your business continues to function, and that's just governance. So looking at risk has to do with the ways by which we are able to spot and anticipate exposures, all right, to the extent that we are not caught unawares. We are not saying that things will not go wrong. In Africa, we are quite religious, right? But then the point then is, if it does happen, it's not God forbid. Are we prepared to respond? Yes. Many organizations across the world did not plan for the pandemic, but COVID-19 happened. And, a lot of organizations that before now had business continuity being put in place, they were prepared to respond better. They had business continuity plans being put in place. They had emergency response plans, crisis management strategies, all of those things. But organizations that were just rolling, as the case may be, what happened during pandemic, some of them didn't survive, and I'm even talking about the top guys and even the top financial institutions and what have you. Some of them didn't even have these things in place. And what am I talking about? I'm saying that it's not enough for you to be making money. All right, you have to look at putting proper governance and risk in place. And risk is it's broad. We don't have the time for that today. Well, talking about enterprise risk, IT risk, cybersecurity risk, business it's a lot. Risk. But all you have to understand is that look at your environment, any exposure, anything that can go wrong at all. Plan for them, put mitigations in place such that if it does occur, you might not be able to eliminate them, but you reduce the efficacy, the impact, of those risks. And that's what risk management is all about. Highlight them, monitor them, and continue to manage them. That's it. And compliance, as the word implies, ensuring that all legal and regulatory requirements, we are there to them. All right, so that we are not found wanting. Like I said, it's not enough that you're making money. Okay, you don't want any sanction. Okay. Take, for example, looking at Nigeria as a case in point, we have the Nigerian Data Protection Regulation that was then, signed into law. It became an act in June 2023, signed by the new president, all right? It then says that the rights of Nigerian citizens, their data must be protected. That's an issue of compliance. Yeah. And if you breach that, beyond the regulatory sanction, it's also a financial implication and it's a reputational damage as well. So that's where compliance comes into play. And we know in Nigeria today, for the guys in financial institutions, the Central Bank of Nigeria released the IT standards blueprint in 2015. And expected all banks should go certify to several management system standards. You must comply. Compliance is mandatory, it's not obligatory. It's not something that we like it or not. Yes, you must add there, because if not, sanctions, and so that's why GRC has come. So that's just the broad term: governance, policies, plans, and procedures, risk, making sure that you are not exposed, or if you are exposed, reduce the impact, and then compliance, and then with all legal and regulatory requirements. That's simply what GRC is all about.
So, when we talk about GRC in cybersecurity, what exactly do we mean?
Okay, when we're talking about governance, you're looking at the principles that we have put in place. You're looking at the frameworks. You're looking at the structures that are already in place, okay, for organizations. So, for example, if you want to look at in terms of policies that have been defined by an organization, so if an organization says, okay, this is a password policy, and within the password policy, they have certain, some requirements, okay, in that policy. That's what governance is. They have set the pace for others to follow. They have put in this in place for employees to follow. So they say, okay, we have this structure. Your password must have this sort of length. Your password must be not easily to be guessed, things like that.
And you must change your password.
Yes. So those laws, those rules that they put in that policy, that's like a structure. That's like a framework they have defined for employees to follow. Yeah.
And then when we see risk, as it concerns cybersecurity.
Okay, so again, when we're looking at cybersecurity, you are looking at it from the asset perspective. Okay. So
what do you mean by asset perspective?
Oh, asset is what is valuable to you.
Okay,
to
beautiful.
You. Thank you. So within an organization, we have different kinds of assets. Assets can be broken out to different. You have your hardware, you have your software, you have the people, you have your network. lots of them, okay? These assets, when you are doing a risk, when you're looking at risk from the cybersecurity perspective, you're looking at how do you assess this risk, okay? What are the resources that you're putting in place to either mitigate, to reduce, those risks that you have identified by the use of those assets, okay? And then constantly monitoring those risks. So sometimes you could do an assessment, and maybe from your assessment of those assets that you use, it's not something that, we try to rate our risk high, medium, low, depending on how we have categorized it within the organization. So you might say, okay, because this risk is low, it's not something I need to monitor. Okay. But no, it goes way beyond that. So you have to keep monitoring those risks, whether they're low, whether they're medium, whether they're high. Put control measures, okay, to reduce them to the level that is, of course, acceptable to the organization. So,
And then compliance in terms of cybersecurity.
Okay, so let's assume I work in a bank. As a financial institution, the environment that I work in is highly regulated. So there are different regulations that maybe my regulator has set that, okay, as a bank, I must comply to this. Okay, so in terms of cybersecurity, it's just me adhering to those laws that have been defined for me in that industry to follow through, in simple terms.
Now, who needs GRC?
Everybody needs GRC, but let me break it down.
Okay.
If you work in a technology company, for example, as a technology company, you handle large sets of data. Okay, maybe you have cloud services. Maybe you you do certain things. You have critical infrastructures. Of course, you need to have a GRC within your environment, okay? For banks, of course, I've already discussed that. For the health sector, you handle sensitive data of your patients. How do you get to handle those data? How do you keep? How do you store? How do how do people access those data that you have in the hospital? Government organizations too. Everybody, as long as, I would just say, as long as you are under one form of regulation, you must have GRC embedded within your environment.
A lot of persons, feel like, I'm talking of employees now, right? And how they react to governance, not to risk, not compliance, but governance. If you tell someone that, you can't visit some certain websites, on your work PCs or your work devices, you're like, these guys are too. So maybe you want to make some comments about that and how, the management, can better handle, especially because this is mainly the that point where we have employee and management having a very rough interaction. So if you want to make some comments on generally GRC and cybersecurity, but I want you to also address this.
Okay, cybersecurity and GRC. I'll just quickly run through that. So the bit about governance in an organization, several policies have been created. She mentioned, password management, for example, is one thing for you to have policies in place, but the question is, are you doing them? Okay, so let's say our password management policy says it must contain alphanumeric, special character, whatnot. It must be changed after every 2 months. After you leave your system idle for 3 minutes, it locks you out. Stuff like that. Is it in place? If in your organization staff are allowed to work remotely, what's your control around VPN access? What's your sensitive? How do you control remote access such that there's a secure network connection? Stuff like that. You have policies around anti-malware. Everything, there should be a policy around everything you do in the organization from a technological point of view. Where cybersecurity then comes in place is to then check to ensure that those things are actually in practice. It's not enough for you to, everybody can create a policy, that's the easiest part. But the work then is that it's in practice. So cybersecurity, the part there is that all of those things, and what sort of guides you is that you can use a framework, you can use a standard. Standards like ISO 27001, the cybersecurity standard, the NIST framework, COBIT, all of these things, SOC 2, Even though something's not very popular around in Africa, it's more in the US and the UK, stuff like that. So your risk management when it comes to cybersecurity, all right, will deal with information assets. Cybersecurity is not concerned with all assets. For example, this AC in this studio, cybersecurity has no business with that. But if it's an asset that contains information, then cybersecurity is. So cybersecurity looks at the protection of the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information assets.
Yeah.
So all our information assets, your desktop, your laptops, your servers, your inventory, your people, your staff, they are all information assets. How do you ensure that they are protected from confidentiality, integrity, and availability? I don't want to go into CIA. That's another. But the point is, when you're conducting risk assessment and you get cybersecurity, you're concerned around the information assets. All right. What are the vulnerabilities that those information assets are exposed to? What are the threats that those vulnerabilities exploit? What's the probability of occurrence of those threats, coming to life, or those risks, right? Then, what is the impact? The impact is based on the CIA, confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And then looking at the impact is going to be high, medium, low. Then something very fundamental that an organization must put into consideration. What is your risk appetite?
Yes.
So your risk appetite then informs your risk acceptance criteria. All right. An organization can decide to say that we want to accept all risk. Who are you to question them? If they say that we have the excuse my French, we have the capacity, we can accommodate it. We make $1 billion. If we lose $100 million to the bad guys, why not? We can accommodate, right? But another guy can say that we are risk averse. We can't afford to make a mistake, right? So we want to treat every risk low, medium, high. So that is the responsibility of top management. So tying it to your question, top management is very, very important in GRC. As a matter of fact, without top management commitment, I usually say you can't go anywhere.
It's a failure.
There's a reason why all management system standards, they are called the management. So information security management system, quality management system, business continuity management system, service management system. The key word there is the management system. Because without top management commitment, you can't go nowhere. And I'll give an example. I've been privileged to have consulted for several organizations in Africa, right? What you then find is that I then ask the question, why are you going on this journey? Why are you implementing this standard, this framework? If management then says, we are doing it because we understand the benefit of best practice, we want to be built to last, we don't want to build a one-man business, we want to build a sustainable business, fantastic. But when I go and I hear, we are trying to bid for a contract, and they say, if you are not certified to this, you already know that that's a recipe for disaster. Because by the time they get that certificate, it's just the paper, everybody goes back to business as usual. So, but then the point is that you have wasted money, you have wasted time. These best practice standards, they are not Nigerian standards, they are not African standards. They are best practice anywhere in the world. Information security in the UK, in the US, in Canada, in Nigeria, anywhere in Ghana. So the point is, once you do the requirements, once you are there, once you imbibe them, it makes your organization better. So it's not location dependent. So that's why if top management doesn't get the picture, or if it's a question of, in Nigeria, for example, if it's a bank and says, because our regulator said we should go on this journey.
Because CBN said we should.
With that mindset, you already know that you're just ticking the box. You're not getting value for your money being spent. So once management understands that we are doing this because, yes, we want to comply with regulatory requirements, but we also want to better our business. We want to build sustainable business. Then they'll do the right thing. And even after I've gotten certified, you continually maintain. So it's a culture change, right? Changes the mindset. We are now doing things differently. Let me give a very practical example, very simple one. Before now, if in your organization, right, you were not paying attention to what we call clear desk, clear screen. Everybody just walks and leaves information here and there. There are some people, with all due respect to the female folks, right? I can go to your desk, I can see I'm going on vacation in August to pick up son by 2 p.m. Your itinerary is written on sticky notes on your table. And why does everybody need to know that? Right? And you finish working on the sensitive document.
Tables,
you finish working on the sensitive document, you just drop them and go. The cleaner comes the next morning and just picks it, drops it in the bin. And maybe the cleaner has an agreement with me and selling akara down the road or granite that give me paper, I'll give you free akara. Then you see people's sensitive documents, organizations, confidentially written, classified, being used to sell akara. Wondering how it got there. Somebody somewhere was careless. You didn't shred those documents when you were done with them. So these are just little things that create culture change. If you don't pay attention to them, they're just taking the box. So top management definitely is very, very important.
Focused on solving customers' problems. Whether it is securing the applications and databases that power your business, the users and customers that access your infrastructure, the API calls that go in and out of your business, or securing people who are your greatest assets. but also pose your weakest link. We also look after your relevant security regulatory standards and the frameworks that you should comply with. In delivering our solutions, we do not just supply you with tools. We first listen to your pain points, match them against your business objectives, and work with you on your journey to build a functional and cost-efficient security culture that supports your business. We are a company dedicated to resolving client problems and ensuring their complete satisfaction. We are continuously pushing the boundaries and collaborating with top-tier industry professionals to ensure that our clients receive the best attention with reliable and efficient service. We want them to focus on delivering value to their stakeholders while we keep them running securely. Yes, we are Ethnos. We solve real problems.
Yeah, so I'm still with Eno and with Mr. Shalakwe Kinde, and we're talking GRC in cybersecurity. One thing that has stayed with me through this conversation is ensuring that cybersecurity is something that is in our blood. Because you may think that, oh, come on, it's not really anything. But when it actually happens, oh, you learn lessons, literally. You will learn lessons. Like, everybody will have to learn the lesson. So let's dwell on the mistakes that businesses usually make, right, in terms of the governance, risk, and compliance. And let's also try to focus on ensuring that we talk about it being a culture, it being business as usual. Ordinarily, sorry to all those who are, business as usual is not it's like, oh, let's do it business as usual. It's like anyhow. But if we turn it around and say in reverse, right? Business as usual should be the thing. Like, cybersecurity should be business as usual. So let it be in everything we do. That's what I want us to, dwell on in this, like, the final third now, the final few minutes as we wrap up.
One of the top mistakes I have identified, of course, having done these implementations across some organizations, one of the mistakes I have seen is where organizations see this as a one-time project. Okay, they just see it as a one-off thing that they just do and they move away. And then maybe when it comes to them having another, they don't approach it from the business as usual perspective. Now, the issue there is we do not want organizations to see this as a one-off project. It's a continuous thing. You have to maintain the standards that you have implemented or you're complying with. You have to maintain it. You don't just certify and then you move on. You maintain that culture that has already been put in place. And if you want to look at it from a business as usual perspective, so for example, there are certain requirements that for a particular standard that you're adhering to, there are certain requirements that you need to follow. It's not just you doing it and you pass audit. It's incorporating it into your day-to-day activities across the entire organization. So by doing that, of course, you are staying compliant. Of course, you are looking at all the risk. Of course, risk, again, it's not something you do one-off. It's a day-to-day thing, okay? Because you need to identify this risk on a daily basis. Anything can happen, okay? And then ensuring that you are staying compliant with those requirements that have been set for you. So, for example, just like Mr. Shalape said, there in the ISO 27001, where you have a control that speaks about your clear screen, clear decks, and then maybe you just get to do it and you move on. No, because of your daily operations, you handle sensitive data, you deal with different customers, things like that. You have to continue, imbibing that culture. You can't keeping documents lying about, you say, okay, this was just for audit purposes and that's it. No, but it's something you have to do on a daily basis, really. You just have to put it into practice in everything you do.
Mr. Shalakwe, do you agree that there are a lot of mistakes we make? And do you agree that we need a business as usual approach?
Yes, there are a lot of mistakes that have been made. And as a matter of fact, GRC is here to stay. Cybersecurity is an evolving phenomenon, and organizations across Africa, that's where I'm very particular about. We sort of have to take it more seriously because we are playing in a global space, and there's no excuse for we're a third world country or whatever continent. Everybody is on the same pedestal. This is not, and so technology is growing. This is the days of the fourth industrial revolution. AI, robotics, and whatnot, supposed to make our life easier. The Internet of Things, all right. As these things are evolving, also the threats are evolving. So we have to ensure that we're ahead of the curve. And back to my point, just to piggyback of what Eno has said, right? It is very important that we do not see this as a one-off exercise. All right. And I usually like to say, by PMBOK definition of project management, an activity that has a start date and an end date. In this case, there's a start date, but there's no end date. Once you start, forever and ever, you are continually improving, because every day there are new exposures, there are new vulnerabilities, there are new threats. You cannot just sit down and be like, oh, now I'm mature, I'm certified. Even the Fortune 500 companies, the Meta, the Google, and all of them, Microsoft, Amazon. There's constant threats every day, and everybody's involved. So you cannot just, and this is just like an advice recommendation I usually give, some of the organizations that I provide advisory services for. And I said, you sort of have to use the carrot and stick approach. Now, this is the Cybersecurity Awareness Month, okay? So make it interesting. You then find that a lot of people see cybersecurity, when it's cybersecurity, it's those IT guys, that's their responsibility. It's not my business, I don't care. So I tell them, you are as strong as your weakest link. If it's the financial controller system that was the gateway through which the organization was breached, the organization is going down. And if there are no segregations on the network, that's a chaos, recipe for disaster. Yes. So the point is, when you are even doing awareness, and this is one of the tricks I usually say, I don't even talk to the staff, I talk to the cleaners, I talk to the drivers, I talk to the security guys. Because those guys as well, you'll be surprised, they have more access to confidential areas than even staff. A cleaner cleans the MD's office. You'll be surprised kind of access they have, and if that person is compromised, can easily do damage. So what I'm saying is that let people have a sense of belonging. Cybersecurity is everybody's responsibility. Everybody has a role to play, right? Let people. So I tell HR, even if it's 5% in the scorecard KPI at the end of the year, let them have something to look forward to. Like, okay, if I do this, I know that is that to me. Not because somebody tell me, consultant, should I pay this thing that you're doing is not my business. At the end of it, doesn't count for me. This is not part of my job. Not my responsibility, my KPI. So why am I doing this? Why do I have to? So let them know that you are doing it because if your organization goes down, you're going down. They will not be able to pay your salary. So you have a role to play. So ensuring that everybody has that sense of involvement. So during this cybersecurity awareness month, make it interesting. Do jingles, do phishing tests, give prizes to the best person, like whoever does it. So let people see cybersecurity as something that's interesting.
I like this.
So don't make it as technical. Let technical guys do their thing, but every other person let them understand. So what you would tell a security guy is that, of course, you'll be talking to a security guy about segregation of encryption or multi-factor authentication. A security guy will tell them about tailgating. Nobody should be able to use your access to access the office. Yes. Okay, your access tag
Physical
is for you only.
Control.
If I see anybody in the office without the tag, be it visitor, staff, customer, questions. Whatever, ask questions. Who are you? Who are you here to see? Everybody should be identified in the organization. Authentication. Nobody should walk around without the tag. So these are the little things whereby. So a cleaner, for example, should know that you see a sensitive document, whatever. You ask the boss, is this important to you? If not, shred it. Don't just throw it away in the bin. So break it down. Let everybody understand what I'm going to be telling management. If I'm going to be telling the cleaners. If I'm going to be telling the other members of staff. So make cybersecurity interesting. Let everybody be carried along. That way you are building the culture. You are maturing. Looking at the capability maturity model, every organization are at different stages. Level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. Even those that are level 5 must optimize. There's still another level of improvement. So, but wherever you are, grow from where you are, right? But understand that where we are now, we cannot remain there. We have to mature our processes. That's why GRC comes into place. Governance. So in most organizations, they don't like GRC professionals because you are seen as the police officers, enforcement, like what you mentioned in the beginning, compliance and control. Yeah. So you are the ones that are ensuring that this thing that we have put in the policy, are we doing them? It's not enough for us to have a policy, and the jury is out there. Harvard Business Review, they arrest people to change people, especially what they say in the US, in America. If it's not broken, don't fix it. People are like, we're already working this way. Why are you introducing new control? Why do I have to change the way I'm doing my work? Because they feel like I'm okay, but you have to then explain the importance. Oh, before now, everybody could just bring their USB drives and plug in their laptops and copy stuff out.
Yeah.
But we have to block your ports. Why do you want to block my ports? So I can't copy anything. Because we're trying to control what comes in and goes out of the organization. We're trying to control our data, our information. Explain, let them understand the benefits. Don't just impose on them. No matter how good your intention is, if you don't understand proper stakeholder management, they will rebel against you. So you must understand these things. That's why you ought to get top management involvement. Top management are decision makers. Get their buy-in. Involve the influencers so that everybody can be carried along. That way, you have an improved cybersecurity culture in an organization, and over the years, you continually grow. That's what I would say.
Beautiful.
Thank you very much.
Any final words, Eno, just before we wrap up?
Not really. I think I'll just align with what Sholakwe said. He said it beautifully.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, is building the awareness culture within the organization. We are not just looking at just top management. You're not just looking at the employees. You're looking at even your cleaners, your deliveries, people who come to deliver things to you. Okay. You're looking at your physical security men, guarding whatever access doors that you have, your organization. So yes, you have to bring it down to their level. Okay, try to make them understand the implications of not adhering to certain things or certain policies that we as an organization they have put in place. Okay, try to make them understand the risk involved. Try to make them understand the impact of them not complying to that, policies that have been put. Okay. So once you do that, having this, again, I always say awareness is not just something you do once. Awareness is not something you do quarterly. Awareness, it should be a daily culture. I always tell my clients that I work for, I say, you know what, let's have like a structure in place where we can always do email campaigns on a daily basis, because I can be so drowned with what I'm doing and I forget things easily. But when you keep flashing something to my face, telling me, giving me some cybersecurity tips like that, when you keep doing that, by way of email or by our discussions, it keeps me, I'm on top of my game. Yeah. I'm like, I'm very careful not to miss it. So again, awareness is very important. That's how we can, have this culture, established amongst the people within the organization. So awareness trainings are very important. So I think that's what I'll say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've been speaking to Sholakwe Akinde, he's an accomplished governance, risk and compliance professional, and also to Eno Asa. Yeah, I asked how to actually say your name. How do you say your name?
Eno Asa.
Okay, so I said it right.
Yes, you did.
Okay, so Eno Asa, highly skilled security and risk management professional, and this particular episode is sponsored by Ethnos. And thank you very much to the sponsors, and thank you so much. Like, I've learned a lot already today, and I'm going downstairs to hold my HR. Yeah. Sorry, maybe not my HR, but like other persons, that, especially those who like leave their sticky notes on their laptops, and then those are I know some people in accounts. I will not say it loud, so they're not real, but in accounts, so I'm going to like hold all of them to ensure that this fight to ensure that we make this business as usual and we inculcate it into the bloodstream of everyone in the company. And I hope that you listening to me, you're also going to preach this gospel and this good news to ensure that we're all safe at the end of the day. Thank you very much again, Mr. Sholakwe and Eno.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Everyone.
At Ethnos, we are focused on solving customers' problems. Whether it is securing the applications and databases that power your business, the users and customers that access your infrastructure, API calls that go in and out of your business, securing people who are your greatest assets, but also pose your weakest link. We also look after your relevant security regulatory standards and the frameworks that you should comply with. Yes, we are Ethnos. We solve real problems.